Hey guys, tonight I want to talk about trads. Are you trad enough?
No, no one has
Certainly.
ever tried enough.
Certainly not.
Depends who you're asking. You're either too trad or not trad enough.
I mean, this house is pretty trad.
Depends what you mean. Trad as in online trad, or trad as in you're just a traditional, following some traditions like a normal person?
Well,
Online ideology or normal traditional? There's a difference, I think.
how trad are you?
I think we should start with definitions
Okay,
of this phenomenon of trad, being trad.
I feel a little trad today
Yeah.
Why?
because I'm wearing like a traditional plaid T-shirt
It's traditionally masculine.
and pants. I'm wearing pants. These are very traditional things of my people.
The plaid or the fact that it's a shirt?
Both actually, but yes.
Cool.
So I guess we want to talk about the online trad phenomenon, right? The ideas of trad and like trad as the ideal that you're supposed to hold to be a good member of trad Twitter.
Yeah, so I think trad has become an ideological idol. So on the left, their ideological idol is like queerness and among other things. But like when I was on the left, it was a lot about like, all these people would talk about how sexually experimental can you be, and like how radical are you? How many protests do you go to? Like how vegan are you? Like how much plastic do you not use? Like those were the ideological idols on the left. And on the right, I'm finding that it's more like, how many acres do you have? Did you home birth your children? What about free birth them? Do you have 20 kids?
Homeschool.
Do you homeschool? Like, how far away from civilization do you live? And it's really the same like status game, just different spheres of ideology, basically. And I'm tired of it.
Well, it's like at first, when you first discover this space, if you've been like harmed by progressive ideology,
Or modern world.
which is like basically the mainstream, right, is progressivism. It's like be as sexually liberated as you can be, and like be as outside of the norms of society as possible. Like that's the mark of true virtue. They'd never use the word virtue, but like that's kind of the idea. It's like you're better the more like the more you unshackle yourself from traditional norms. That's the idea. So when you first discover this like trad space where people are like, actually it's good to be normal and to not sleep with a lot of people and to be monogamous and to have children, and it's like really refreshing, but it has a dark side as well that I think we see a lot of on Twitter,
Yeah.
and you could argue that like it's not worth talking about that, but I think it is, because some of the dark side of the trad stuff can be like actually pretty toxic too.
It can be like borderline pornographic. Like there's like, it gets really like fetishy. Like there are these. I think it's men pretending to be women in some cases, but it could be young girls, and they just say these like crass, gross things about how like women should be basically like breeding stock, and like you should be pregnant for like 25 years straight, and it's just like it's very too far.
It's like trad fantasy porn.
Yeah,
is
it's like a
thing.
different form of porn, really. And
Yeah.
it's like more wholesome, but it's still like the same kind of inclination, I think.
Still not reality.
Still not real.
Lacks
Still virtual
nuance.
reality, yeah.
Yeah.
So like the good side of trad discourse is saying it's like it's okay to be normal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bad side of trad discourse is it creates some like new countercultural idol, and it like shames you if you're not living up to that.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways we see that is how these like terrible usually anonymous, but some aren't, accounts on Twitter treat women who are in their 30s and single and don't have children. They're like utterly terrible to them, just like totally
It's their
shaming them,
stigma. Like,
bullying them, and telling them they're going to be miserable and you're going to end up with cats and you're going to be so miserable in your old age. And
I like cats.
I love
too.
cats.
and I don't think you're doomed to misery if you find yourself single. A lot of people find themselves single in old age, and it's like, I'm sure they have like maybe it's not what they prefer, but a lot of people have situations in life they wouldn't have chosen or prefer, and they find a way to cope with it. Like, usually, and I mean, a lot of these people saying this are supposedly Christians, and they're doing this to kind of like, I think their technique is to like inspire fear in young women, like, oh my gosh, I better like grab a guy, and
like
so I don't end up alone.
maybe that guy that's saying that, even though he's awful,
who's that fellow?
Maybe I can shame her and scare her into
get her
picking
to marry me. Yeah,
but it's like the opposite. Like you get into this space where it's like the opposite measuring stick of what the progressives are looking at. Like progressives are about how, are you posting your black square? Did you go to the protest? Yeah. Did you renounce your white privilege enough today? All that kind of stuff, like, is the mark of a good person. And then on the right, it's just
did you have 20 kids by age 20? Like,
there's a lot. Yeah. How many?
Everybody calm down.
It's a different, how many seed oils did you eat?
Yeah, the seed oil, and it's like,
or whatever it is. It's a diet stuff.
Yeah, how much raw milk do you drink? And like everybody like posts their raw milk.
Do you even
like,
raw milk?
I'm not saying these things are like bad. It's just what we're criticizing is like them becoming like holy cows, I think, and like.
Yeah, it's just
it's like good to have a family, right? Like it's it's a divine gift. It helps you be a better person. It aids in your salvation, and it's a part of the divine plan for the human being. But it's also it doesn't, like you were saying, it doesn't happen for everyone. We're in a messed up society. It's not easy to do. It's hard for people to form families, and people are trying their best. So if someone is in their 30s or 40s or 50s and doesn't have a family, like, it doesn't make their life better or make them a better member of the community to like shame them and tell them they're awful.
Or doomed to misery. That's my problem I have, is this like message to people that just seems like mean-spirited and cruel, that you're like doomed to be miserable.
And I get that people are trying to correct for a culture that says that stuff isn't important and you shouldn't think about it, and it's even some messages are like it's not worthwhile, whatever.
Or you're destroying the planet.
Yeah, like you're destroying the planet. You should be sacrificing having children for the good of the planet. Like there's all that messaging.
Or even like I think the typical Redditor would either be on it's destroying the planet, or they would be like, it's a choice, it's a consumer choice, right?
Yeah, it's all about individualism, right? Yeah.
Whereas like actually as a default path for most humans, it's like pretty good.
Yeah, it is. And I think the thing is like, it's a good path, and a lot of people like really want that really badly, and they're having trouble with it. Sometimes it's not even like a personal problem. It's like, I know all these like beautiful young women, and like there's nothing wrong with them, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know why you don't have a husband. Like, you're doing everything you should be. You go on dates, you're social, you talk to people, you're involved with the church, like, and it's like very mysterious. So, I don't think I think that message of like, you're going to be miserable and how dare you not be married by now is reaching them mostly, actually. Like, it's actually reaching like women who are trying really hard, and it's
not reaching the left.
Yeah. And so you're actually like kind of just being mean and like causing a lot of despair that's unnecessary. I see it in young men too, like some young Orthodox men online. Also, they have this kind of, it's almost like, I don't know, it's borderline demonic, like the way it grips people and makes them feel bad about themselves. And I don't see a message that's like, yeah, try your best, but it's going to be okay. Like, no one is saying that. And it doesn't get you likes.
Like, I will hear it from like clergy. Yeah. They are very much like, women who are unmarried it's not this dichotomy between married or alone. It's like you still are able to be an active member of your community. You're a sister, maybe you're an aunt, maybe you're a cousin, a friend, godmother, like that's a neighbor. Like, there's all these ways that you're still alive in the world. Like,
God still loves you.
Yeah, and your life has worth and meaning, and it's okay, and it's not like you're doomed and you don't need to despair, and that's fine. And I think that the trads can be a little uncharitable or too forceful in trying to correct for the progressive culture, which is good and which is what we need. But you don't want to go into that territory of also like scaring people, shaming them, being cruel, or scaring them.
It reminds me a little bit of like the Jonathan Edwards like tactic of evangelization. He was like this old preacher in New England that was famous for his sermons about how angry God is and how you're going to go to hell and how awful hell was. And, it's like not the best way to make people behave better or make the world better to go around saying like, you're going to hell, right?
Yeah.
It's like, just not, it doesn't really inspire the best out of people.
Yeah, it's fear tactics, and the right really has to watch for this, right? You need to be able to message about the virtues of family and marriage and the goodness of children and all that without scaring people or acting like they're gonna, die if they reach 35 and don't have these things. Like it's just wrong. There are many ways people are creative in the world and contribute to the world that aren't those things. And as we do have this society where it is hard to form a family, like that messaging is going to be more necessary, I think, for people who did like hit 40 and they don't have a family or whatever it is,
Yeah, you're gonna need more messaging that inspires people and doesn't shame them, I guess, for things that are like sometimes beyond their control and our cultural problems. And more messaging that's like inviting and like a warmth and a warm space for people to come into. Because I also think maybe this puts off a lot of, I see leftists on Twitter as like, this will reach them sometimes, and it just confirms all their biases about like more conservative people, that they think women are just like breeding stock and like things like that. So it's like,
yeah. And that is really what feminism like is, a reaction to the idea that that's all that is, your only worth is in your ability to have children or whatever.
And they have a point. Like they want to be seen as like whole people. And it's like, yeah. Not just for what you can like produce with your body. I get it.
So if you're not, and I'm not a feminist, right? I used to be, but I'm not anymore. But I do get what they're reacting to, right? And you do need messages that can make women feel like they are not doomed to a life of sadness and despair if they don't achieve XYZ, but also that those things are good, worth pursuing, and can also lead to happiness. Like you need some nuance, or else you're going to create feminists, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really.
Well, I think feminists, if they're saying that women are whole people and they're reacting against the idea that women should have a very limited role in life, then anti-feminism is reacting against the feminist idea that traditional feminine roles are bad. Right, it's like okay to be a feminine woman is kind of what the anti-feminist thing is saying, and then perhaps it's good even for most women to have somewhat of a traditional feminine path in life, or to have some portion of that like incorporated into their life. And then the anti-feminist is saying, oh, but you guys are going a little crazy with it and pushing too far, and like, I don't know, being super trad or whatever, being too rigid maybe, and prescribing some new ideal. Like even with the farm LARPing stuff, it's like, okay, there is something virtuous about growing things out of the ground and stuff, but also you can live a good life in cities, right? I don't know, a lot of our saints and people that we look up to, like, I don't know, lived in Constantinople or something. It's like,
Xenia lived in St. Petersburg, right?
Yeah.
She was a saint. She was in the city.
So there's actually, it's really important to look to the saints in part. I mean, like everything we're talking about ties into that, right? Like saints lived all sorts of different lives. Many were single, many were married, many lived as a recluse, many lived in cities, right? Like there's all these different, there's not like one path, right, to sainthood. And I think that's important to remember. And the farm LARPing is just this, again, it's like just another measuring stick.
And I think people kind of forget why certain modern technology developed. Like people had, if you were like stuck on a farm and some technology was invented that could give you some more free time, it was like, thank God, like people were really beholden to this, and it was like, there's a reason things developed in that way. I think people forget that, like forget that life was hard, and that's why certain like technological advancements happened, and like it was an aspiration to maybe get off the farm so you could experience more things. Like
and obviously then everything has a shadow side, right? Then you have too much free time, and now we fill the world with video games and technology.
We're far away from nature,
right? But it's like it's true what you said. Like you can still have a good life, like living in a suburb
with a garden
and going to the grocery store. And I get that people are also, again, reacting against the the systems we've set up in our modern world that are like fragile and sometimes that can be kind of scary. Like during COVID, it was kind of like, oh, are we about to like wreck our entire system and supply chains?
Yeah,
and will I
still,
need
still
to have
a
garden?
lot of that going on with like the war in Ukraine.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
and, you know, energy prices going up, and we're not. People are worrying about fertilizer supplies being sent to third world nations and stuff. It's like, I don't know, things are crazy out there.
In this summer, we had a garden, and it felt really good to be self-sufficient. I didn't have to go buy vegetables for months, right? I just go into my backyard, and like that was awesome, and that does feel good. But also, like, you just have to be careful when we talk about these things. And I'm starting to understand the phrase like keeping up with the Joneses. It can become like a different. Every like subculture has its own standards of status, right? And so like it's weird on Twitter. Yeah, it's like, oh, how many do you have chickens? How many
home
acres?
birth,
You have?
like-
Did you home bird?
Yeah.
Did you do it natural?
I got
Are
a
you a
lot
member
of
of the HBC?
so I got into a bit of a. Well, I didn't really. I made somebody upset on Twitter because I said that it didn't really matter how you had your baby, or rather that it's like not better than someone because you had a home birth and you went to the hospital. That's fine. Like we shouldn't put women down for things like this because a lot of it's out of their control. It's not like sports competition. Like you're not in full control of everything that's going on with your body all the time. Someone got really upset with me because I said there was a natural birth club online where women kind of like, and if women don't make it into that club, they feel bad about themselves. And I was just kind of saying, I don't think you need
Act superior.
don't act superior or arrogant because you did something that's cool, yeah, but it's also like you don't need to like exclude, like put women down for not doing that because it wasn't really within their control all the time. Like a lot can happen in childbirth, but
Yeah, and a lot of our friends that are like, other people who are sort of purposefully traditional conservative people that want to live a normal life and are pursuing that and like have families that seem to be going okay. Like a lot of them had a difficult birth and went to the hospital. A lot of them, both parents work. A lot of them don't have a farm. It's like, so we have these sort of cultural trends that go around about maybe being more authentic or resilient or in touch with nature, and these are good things, but also it's okay to not meet all of the ideals. These are just these are trends, right? Like you don't need to hit them all to be a good person or to have a good family or to have a good life.
Right, and you're not a failure because you didn't do some of them like that. It's like life is
and you're not
messy and complicated.
and you're not better than somebody because you did.
Yeah,
some
I
of those
see a
things.
lot of like weird. I've seen like weird competitiveness on Twitter. Like, well, we have more goats than you, and it's like this is ridiculous. Like, like this is insane. You're actually like competing
Oh my
over
gosh.
how much cattle you have. Like,
People who like aren't in our
Relax.
circles on Twitter probably have no idea,
no idea what we're talking
about.
about. A couple of my followers have been like, "What's trad warping?" And I'm like, "Oh, bless your heart." Like, I wish I didn't
Like
know.
I'm
what it
gonna
was.
move off the grid and have a homestead and all that stuff.
Well, and I'm really interested in how this whole like right-wing authenticity kind of movement or like whole food back to the planet kind of stuff. It looks a lot like the hippie counterculture,
Yes.
like from the 70s. Like it's sort of like maybe horseshoe theory. Like
Yes.
if you go out into the wilds of California, you find like left-wing people or psychedelicists that are trying to live off the land and like rejecting plastics and like trying to be super pure. And then I don't know, if you go into the woods of Pennsylvania, maybe you find like more right-wing Christian people that
Absolutely.
are, and like the Amish are out here, right?
Yeah,
and,
it's
like,
totally
and
horseshoe
it's like,
theory.
but now we have like this group of people from the internet that want to do it, and it's like something very parallel there.
Yeah, like often the left and right end up at similar conclusions, which is like, screw civilization, this is fragile and set up in terrible ways, and I'm going to be self-sufficient and homestead, and like the left and right will end up there, right? They get there through like different reasons, right? But I thought it was really interesting, even like during COVID, you had like a lot of the people, it was like both the left and right on the far ends were like extremely skeptical of big pharma and the vaccines, right?
Oh, I don't think the left was super.
The far left was the like crunchy left. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
they
true.
were like,
there's like a big left wing component
The new
to contingent to like people that like don't vaccinate their kids, like from not COVID vax, but like older vaccines.
yeah.
Like there's a big left wing contingent of that. Like they live in places like Oregon and
Yeah.
in California and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. You use the word pure, and that's what I think it is. I think this is purity spiraling. It's like, who can be like the purest and the most clean of modern like dirtiness or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like,
We have such a strong like conscience as humans, and we really do want to like insulate ourselves from what's bad and feel confident that we're making good choices, and all of that's very natural. So it can be hard to like have nuance, have grace with yourself and others if they're making different choices or not able to do certain things that you think would be the ideal. Like all of this is like very complicated, and we're always going. It seems like people are always going to be judging how other people live, how other people's lives are. And I mean, really, that if you're doing that, it really just hurts you. If you're looking at someone else and like, oh, but they have 10 acres and they have this and that, and why don't I have?
This is the kind of status competition that I think was just like very in person before, and now it's online, so we can compare ourselves against thousands of people instead of dozens of people, right?
right.
Yeah,
It used to be just your neighborhood and like your house, maybe the state of your house or how big your car was the signal, and now it's all on social media.
You can compare yourself to the whole world or your whole online community of people who might be like you, similar to you, think like you, but now you have access to like compare yourself to somebody across the country.
It's really no wonder like young women are having major like self-esteem problems and rates of like depression, anxiety are going up, because I don't know if we're meant for that much access to people's accomplishments. Like, you know, a lot of people aren't authentic online. A lot of them are like not telling you the full truth because you can't communicate. You simply can't communicate the full truth online. Like through the medium, you can't. So you're going to miss chunks of reality. It's all like media manipulation, really. So yeah, you get this like, it's like a totally virtual reality, but we're like engrossed in it all day, and you forget that. It's just like our brain, I don't think, has evolved to like tell the difference between like what we're seeing isn't real and actual reality, because this technology is so new. I could be wrong, but
And people have been saying this about Instagram for a long time, right? That people only post their highlight reel and they're not posting the moments where they're suffering or something bad is happening or they don't feel good, right? They're just posting all the good stuff. But yeah, having that access to like so many people is just...
I don't know if we're built for it,
Yeah.
really. It's like, you know, we were talking about this recently about how I've met like thousands more people than my grandmother ever did in her entire life.
And
Like,
probably spoken to
And
more
spoken
people.
to more people than she ever even encountered in her life.
Met
and
more
it's
people.
just kind of
I mean,
unbelievable.
these are women who grew up in small coal mining towns and never left, right? They didn't like travel to new cities and do all these things and
or go to college.
or have the internet or go to
Yeah.
college or have different corporate jobs in different cities.
So it makes your head spin. I can see why like people are having trouble like psychologically adjusting to this because it's so new. And yeah.
Well, which one of us do you think is the most trad?
I don't want to do trad competition.
Roll the
I'm
least
certainly not.
trad.
Well, I make candles.
I drank pasteurized milk the other day, so
Ooh,
I'm not.
Negative
and
5.
oils, slow.
+5.
I shopped at a corporate store recently.
Oh, you're losing. You're losing,
I
Julie.
lose.
I work on a computer.
I went to
all day.
Walmart.
But who did the most of the garden?
Me.
Okay.
You were really busy, and it would not have got started.
It wouldn't have gotten started if she didn't have the
Oh,
time.
well, and your dad helped a
And
lot.
my dad
helped
a lot.
But he's
yeah.
kind of trad, I guess.
I picked a lot of.
Yeah.
But he's not online at all. How can he be trad if he doesn't post about it?
Oh.
on
Facebook's
Twitter?
getting him. Facebook's getting all the boomers.
Oh.
They're starting to use that, unfortunately. But someone said it steals boomer souls.
But I think there just has to be some sort of like acknowledgement that like the progressives are wrong when they say that it's bad to have a normal life, and the right is wrong when they say
You need
that,
to home birth at 20
that
kids.
if you don't have a normal life, you're doomed, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, some of what the right I think is saying also isn't normal. I don't know what is normal.
Yeah, it's kind of like a hyper normal,
Hyper-normal, like extreme normal. It's so normal.
It's almost like Amish in some ways. It's not
It is.
It's like Amish, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's also that, but they don't flee technology because you have to like have 20 kids and post about it online.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like, you're
It's
not,
like-
so you have to do this, but not be humble about it. Please
Yeah.
don't be
Yeah.
humble. Did you even have 20 kids if you didn't post about it all over the internet?
Yeah.
Like, it's like silly. Like, at least the Amish don't use social media. Like,
Yeah, it's
and
not.
they have their own problems. Like the right wingers really like idolize the Amish, and like I don't want to get too far into it, but it's like that's not there's this idea that they're like pure, and there's a lot to admire there, but like they have a lot of issues too with like drugs and scandals, and it's a human community just like any other. So
Yeah.
this idea that you would like get an enclave in the middle of 500 acres with just a couple families and everything would be like hunky dory is a fantasy. Like you would have drama and problems and scandals and sin, and like it would all be there. So, and this idea also that you would, I think you pointed this out to me, like that if you did get a farm, like if there's a communist takeover, they will go to your farm. Like they'll find you. In Ukraine and I forget the other country, Romania, they went to the farms and they took all their food. Like
Yeah,
So-
there is an idea that
not saying, again, I feel like have to keep saying, not saying these aren't good things, but just that the
Yeah.
trends are a little out of control and
Yeah, when-
unrealistic.
yeah, when there were like riots in American cities and COVID and everything was shut down and blah blah blah, people like thought the solution. A lot of people thought the solution was like go super rural.
Yeah.
Right, but you're right. Like if
And like also like with the home birthing thing, there was like a huge distrust of hospitals because of the masking stuff. But I've seen that kind of content get really out of control, where we're like just demonizing hospitals now, and they're totally evil. And it's like I had a couple experiences this year where my friends like tried to home birth and like ended up in hospitals, and it like saved their lives.
Yeah.
And that actually made me realize I was ingesting a lot of like fear mongering, and that there's good people and Christians and nice people that work in hospitals, and they didn't like a lot of the COVID restrictions. But so I don't know. It's reality's a lot more complicated than I think people want it to be.
Well, I have another 4 minutes before that camera automatically shuts off. So have we hit all the highlights?
I think so.
I think
Keep it
so.
short and sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice little
Point
short,
made.
nice little short thing.
Point made.
So good luck to all you guys out there on the farms.
And everyone be nice to each other.
Yeah, just chill.
Don't
Like
everyone
yeah,
Stop
you
being mean to me.
know, like, there's just a lot of ways to be a good person. You know, it doesn't look one way.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, at the end of the day, we're really measured by how nice we are to each other, how excellent we are to each other, and not you know, whether or not we fit one particular ideal.
Well
Well said.
said.
All right. Well, peace, everyone.
We don't-